All right, welcome back to the Double Play channel where I show you how you can put your money to work in two places at one time by leveraging the cash value of a maximum overfunded life insurance policy. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that's a little bit more near and dear to me, and that's underwriting concerns. As a life insurance agent, I see a lot of people who are not qualified to get life insurance. We go through the whole process. They appear healthy to me. But oftentimes they're overweight and they're on medications that they didn't tell me about. And underwriting is a huge concern for a lot of people. I mean, if you look at the obesity epidemic in this country, things are just outrageous with people getting overweight, diabetes, other chronic illnesses. So today I'm going to be talking about life insurance and diabetes. And I'm going to show you what it is, what causes it, and how you can fairly simply reverse it so that you can qualify for life insurance, even if you have heart condition, diabetes. The title of this is diabetes, but keep in mind, most chronic illness stems from the same thing. So stick around after the intro and I'll break it all down for you. All right, thanks for sticking around. I'm Tomrutkowski with Innovative Retirement Strategies, and I'm a life insurance agent. This channel is usually dedicated to the double play, which is putting your money to work in two places at one time by leveraging the cash value of a maximum overfunded life insurance policy. But today I want to talk about life insurance and diabetes because a lot of people that want to get life insurance can't because of health conditions. But I want to show you just how easy it is to reverse those conditions. So I'm not going to go through my standard disclaimers today just because I'm not selling life insurance. I'm just talking about health and how to qualify for life insurance. And if there's any disclaimers, that I'm not providing any medical advice. These are just dietary guidelines, you could say, that have worked for me and can work for you as well. So again, the purpose of today's discussion is to talk about life insurance and diabetes. I want to address the underwriting concerns that many of you may have if you have any kind of health issues, if you're overweight, if you've got pre-diabetes, diabetes, if you've got high blood pressure, any kind of high cholesterol, things like that. So again, the purpose of this discussion today, this video, is to address the underwriting concerns. I want to explain what diabetes is, what causes it, and how it can be easily reversed. So I'm going to start off by just giving you some diabetes statistics just to show you how prevalent this problem is in our country. And then I want to just give you some background on diabetes, how it relates to sugar and insulin. And then we're going to talk about the root cause, what's behind the obesity and diabetes epidemics. And honestly, it gets much worse than that. I mean, diabetes is just the beginning. It puts you on the path to all kinds of other chronic illness. And then lastly, I just want to talk about how to reverse it. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a little bit of my own personal journey and what led me to have such an intense interest in health and fitness. All right, so let's start off by just talking about some sobering statistics. A staggering 73% of American adults are either overweight or obese. 88% of Americans show sign of metabolic dysfunction. That's from a study at Tufts University. 88%. That means only 12% don't have some sort of metabolic dysfunction. And by metabolic, excuse me, can't say that. By metabolic dysfunction, what I mean is it's the path to diabetes. You begin by having a dad bod and slowly starting to put on weight. But there are changes going on in your body that are resulting from all of the sugar and carbohydrates that you're eating and put you on the path to diabetes. So you're not technically diabetes yet, but you're definitely on that approach to it. So 11.3% have diagnosed diabetes. Another 38% have pre-diabetes. And then beyond that would just be the people that are obese and on the path to diabetes. Obesity and diabetes increase the risk of heart disease and cancer. And it's not just cancer, heart disease and cancer. There's a whole set of diseases that all stem from insulin resistance, which is the core of diabetes. All right, so moving on. So let's talk about diabetes and try to get our arms around exactly what it is. So to do that, we need to talk about the role of sugar and insulin. And when you eat carbohydrates and sugar, your pancreas starts to produce insulin. And the role of the insulin is to get rid of the sugar. And I should point out at this point that carbohydrates break down into sugars. And it doesn't matter whether they're healthy green vegetables or if it's bread. But just understand that white food like bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, pure sugar, break down into glucose extremely quickly. And that glucose in the body is toxic and damages the body. So the body wants to get rid of it as soon as it can. And I should point out that insulin is toxic to the body as well. I mean, it has a role in your metabolism, but it's not meant to be elevated at the levels that it gets to, from a modern high carbohydrate diet. So insulin is behind cancers and things like that. It's a growth hormone in addition to clearing the body of excess glucose. So the body tries to rid itself of excess glucose, and the insulin is the trigger that does that. So the body switches to burning glucose for energy, metabolizing glucose. And that can only do so much. I mean, if you're sitting on a couch watching TV, you're not going to be burning much glucose. But if you're out walking, exercising, running, working out, you're going to be burning much more of that glucose off, and maybe you can maintain it a little bit better than some other people. But the key is all the rest of the glucose in your bloodstream is being taken up by your fat cells and converted to fat and stored as energy. But the problem is that fat cells can only take so much. Once they're full and they've reached their energy capacity, the cells themselves send off a signal to the cell membrane to lock the glucose receptor. And it basically locks the door so that the insulin has no effect. And the problem there is that both insulin and glucose remain elevated in your body. Now, the progression to diabetes is, that prolonged exposure to high glucose causes damage throughout the body. It's thought that glucose is behind atherosclerosis. The high levels of glucose in the bloodstream are damaging the arteries. It's thought that cholesterol is not the cause of heart disease. Rather, it's there to repair the body, the arteries. It's hard to believe that cholesterol can be bad for you when your brain is made out of cholesterol. Cholesterol is what is used to construct your skin cells. It's all cell membranes, your testosterone, your estrogen, all of those things you need cholesterol for. And again, I just want to stress that the high levels of glucose in the body and the high levels of insulin lead to other chronic disease. I've got cancer, heart disease, kidney disease listed here, but macular degeneration, even hearing loss is linked to insulin resistance. So high levels of glucose in the bloodstream definitely cause problems to the body. So continuing on, if glucose is elevated, your insulin remains elevated as well, and the body just remains in detox mode continuously. So your body is running off of glucose, and if your body's running off of glucose, you're in that fat storage mode, and your body's storing fat, but your body never gets a break to actually turn around and utilize the fat. So it's important to understand that the body cannot burn fat while insulin is elevated. And insulin is going to be elevated so long as you're starting off your day every morning with a slice of toast and a glass of orange juice. So it's important to realize that this is the reason why nearly all diets fail. You can run You can exercise, but you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. And restricting calories can lead to weight loss, but it's simply unsustainable. Eventually, your body will slow its metabolism down to account for the calorie restriction. But I do say nearly for a reason, and we'll get back to it in a minute. So let's talk about the root cause of diabetes. And it's pretty simple. It's not eating a proper human diet. And I know you probably think that, all the food you buy comes from a store and it's, good for you humans to eat. But think back, 50 years ago, look at pictures from the 60s. It can be pictures of concerts, events, beach scenes, whatever. Surely you noticed that people are not as obese in those old photographs. This is something that's happened only in the last 50 years. And what's changed in those last 50 years? It's the increase of processed food. It's the move away from whole foods. So we're not eating today the same diets that we ate 50 years ago, and certainly not 150 years ago, prior to the introduction of refrigeration and seed oils and other things that are more common today. You go back 150 years, you couldn't eat vegetables year round. You couldn't eat fruits year round. You need a refrigerator for that. They need refrigerated transport just to get to the store. So again, just keep in mind what we're eating today is not the same as our ancestors ate. And honestly, the agricultural revolution started 12,000 years ago. So prior to that point, humans didn't even eat vegetables. We didn't eat grains. We didn't eat anything. What vegetables humans would have ate would have been something that they came across in the wild. Maybe some berries somewhere, maybe some mushrooms. But just, keep in mind that the fruit that you see in the markets today, that did not exist 12,000 years ago. Every piece of fruit, every vegetable that you see today has been hybridized. It's not the same as what would have occurred in the wild over 12,000 years ago. So what did our ancestors eat? Primarily, they hunted and ate meat. You've heard, it's very popular to project the idea that humans dug up tubers and ate that. But that was starvation food. That's what they ate when they couldn't find something to kill and eat. So meat was the predominant piece of the diet. And I'm going to include resources and links for everything that I'm talking about, so that I'm not just making this up. This is something I've been researching for many, many years due to my own health. All right, so let's talk about the modern diet. Get back to my presentation here. Highly processed food didn't exist, more than 50, 60 years ago. Honestly, it's been introduced since World War II. The excess consumption of grains, that's primarily a result of farming subsidies and overproduction of grains. And the government just said hey, let's recommend that people eat grains. And they made it as the core of, if you can remember, the food pyramid. If you think back 50 years, there were still some obese people, but people were thin. And what's really different between then and now are the last two items on this bullet point list. High fructose corn syrup was introduced to the diet in the 1980s, and food companies started using it in place of sugar in almost everything. Do you remember the new Coke many years ago? If you're my age, if you're younger, you probably don't. But now most canned sodas are full of high fructose corn syrup instead of cane sugar, and it's horrible for your metabolism. Fructose is known to slow down your metabolism. And if you think about it, look at it this way. Squirrels, bears, animals that hibernate, what do they do in the fall? They scrounge up as much and stuff themselves, gorge themselves on fructose. Eating fruit and berries and whatever they can get their hands on, nuts, things that are addictive and have components in these things attached to the opioid receptors in the brain, which leads to a gorging response to fill up. And what does it do? It slows down your metabolism and causes you to put on fat. exactly the things that they need to hibernate through the winter. So moving on, the other thing is toxic seed oils. So these didn't even exist 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Vegetables and seed oils were introduced around the Civil War era. They were introduced as a machine lubricant. But after the war, somebody had the bright idea to see if we could sell them as a lard substitute. Because prior to that time, lard was what was being used. And from a marketing perspective, they just portrayed it as being much cleaner and from plants, so it was healthy. But that was far from the case. If just switching from diabetes to heart disease for a moment, if you go back prior to the 1880s, there were no recorded instances of heart disease in any of the medical literature. So the first time that it started to be seen was after the 1800s. And by the 1920s, it was the number one killer of people in the country. And nobody had any idea where it came from. I'm sure the seed oil manufacturers knew where it came from, but they were going to destroy any research or cast doubt on any research that showed that seed oils might be the cause. In fact, it's known that they bribed the researchers to blame red meat for the problem. And that's why we have today saturated fats and red meats being demonized, even though they're the healthiest fats that you can possibly eat. So anything that comes from a seed, canola comes from rapeseed, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower seed oil, all of them are extremely toxic. And I know you probably don't have a can of these things sitting on your shelf, but they're in everything that comes in a box, bag, can, bottle. And you need to read the labels. I mean, I would recommend not eating processed food to begin with, but read the labels. All right, so moving on, the next big bullet point, the medical and pharmaceutical establishment feigns ignorance. They pretend that they don't have any idea what's causing the problem, that it's, to them, diabetes, type 2 diabetes is an incurable disease. It's just something you're going to have to take medication for the rest of your life. However, the academic world has known for many years that this is a metabolism problem, and it's a toxicity issue from dealing with too much glucose and too much insulin. You're basically telling your body to store fat. All right, so let's get back to diabetes and life insurance. You want to get a life insurance policy. You're not sure if you're going to be able to qualify. What can you do about it? Just follow these simple guidelines. And again, even if it's not diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, you name it, except cancer. Follow these simple guidelines, and just tell me you didn't get any results after trying this for 30 or 45 days. So it's very simple. If diet caused the disease, and I hesitate to even call it a disease, it's more of a sugar toxicity problem. It's what happens to your body when you don't put the right food in it. So diet caused it, diet can reverse it. And it's going to happen much more quickly than you think it can. So low carb, keto, paleo, and carnivore diets have been proven to reverse this supposedly irreversible disease. I mean, over the last 4 years, I've read tons of diet books, and even like diets like the South Beach diet. When you read the book and you see what they're recommending, it's a low carb diet. They're cutting out the white food. They're keeping in other things such as seed oils. So I mean, it's a good start, but it's not going all the way. So what you need to avoid eating, I mean, the first item there is seed oils. If you can do only one thing to take charge of your health and improve your health, it's cut seed oils out of your life. And this is a tough one. Again, I'm not talking about the bottle of vegetable oil that's sitting in your pantry. What do you think French fries are fried in? What do you think tortilla chips are fried in or made in? Seed oils are in everything, and they're highly toxic. If you want to go out for chicken wings, Go to Buffalo Wild Wings. They're the only place out there that I know of that makes their wings in beef fat. The way, hell, if you go back 30, 40 years, McDonald's used to fry their French fries in beef tallow, beef fat. And that they actually tasted good back then. They were crispy, they didn't get soggy, and they were shamed into getting rid of that dangerous saturated fat, and they switched over to vegetable oil. And ever since then, they've never been as good. They get cold and soggy, and they're just not what they used to be. And did heart disease change since then? No. If anything, you look out the window, the streets are crowded. Walmart is crowded with people who are overweight, unhealthy, diabetic, on medications. It's from eating these seed oils, which lead to insulin resistance. I mean, direct causal link. The next thing, if you want to go a little bit further, is cut out the white food. By white foods, I mean sugar, I mean pasta, bread, potatoes, rice. All of these things convert readily to glucose in your body. I mean, a slice of white bread, for example, will convert to glucose in your stomach quicker than a spoonful of sugar will. So just keep that in mind. When you raise your insulin, you put your body into fat storage mode. So you've got to keep the carbohydrate intake to a minimum. And then lastly is sugars. And by sugars, I mean high fructose corn syrup and just plain sugar. Now, obesity was not a huge problem 50, 60 years ago. There were obese people for sure. But what we've seen in the last 50, 60 years is coming from the high fructose corn syrup and the seed oils. So sugars are bad, but not that bad. They didn't cause a problem, nor did all the white food. But the white foods certainly don't help. I mean, what people were obese 50 years ago were probably from overeating carbohydrates, pasta, potatoes, things like that. Sugars. What you should eat, I'm limited on room here, but I've got beef, just the basics: beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, B, and E, and then any non-white vegetables. So, don't worry about, your broccolis and things like that. But, they should still be minimized on your plate. Don't worry about a salad, greens, things like that. You can eat low sugar fruits, but I mean, otherwise, if you're trying to lose weight, I would really avoid fruits as well as fruit juices. I mean, I can't. Again, you look at the labels, and if it isn't 100% natural juice, don't drink it. And even if it is not 100% natural juice, you're drinking it in a condensed, processed form that's not natural. That people would not have been eating over 100 years ago, prior to the packaging. So it's not a good part of a human diet. But, berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, I mean, they're all somewhat low sugar fruits, and in moderation don't cause a problem. Off to the right, I've got a little picture of the 8 industrial seed oils to avoid. All right, conclusion. So improving your health and reversing disease is easy. Just start avoiding the foods that made you sick in the first place. You don't have a disease. You have a glucose toxicity problem from not eating a proper diet. Don't believe your doctors. The medical establishment is trying to sell medication and make money from you. So they're going to tell you, they're going to tell you that no research exists to show this. But the problem is they're just ignoring the research. The research is there in the academic world, and I welcome you to do some research. So I'm going to put some links in the description down below, and by all means, follow those links. Look at the recommended videos that come up from those, and go down those rabbit holes. Try to shoot holes in this. All I would say is, I'm a pretty good example of what you can look like when you eat properly. I'm thin, fit, healthy. But to talk about my story, in January of 2021, I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which came as quite a shock to me because I thought I was healthy. I ran all the time. I worked out, but I had a diet that was very high in sugars and, who knows what else I may have been exposed to when I was in the Marine Corps. So I had the disease. And if there's anything lucky about having chronic lymphocytic leukemia, CLL, it's that they don't do anything right away. There's no chemotherapy. There's no other therapies. They just watch your blood counts. It's a disease of growing white blood cells multiplying, and basically crowding out the red blood cells. So I had time. And I took that time to research alternative cures. I mean, if my doctors weren't going to do anything, then I was going to take matters into my own hand and see what it was I could do with diet. And, the first thing that you come across is vegan, of course. But when I talked to a holistic or naturopath doctor, they recommended that I do a keto diet. They put me on all kinds of supplements, and I did that. But, I go for a walk every morning, and I like to listen to podcasts. So I've been researching keto and intermittent fasting and cancer and trying to get my arms around the disease. And that ultimately led me to a carnivore diet, which I think is the best. I felt great when I cut grains and breads and pastas, as much as it hurt to get rid of those things, as much as I love those things. I realized I was addicted to those things. Sugar is a very addictive drug. But once you break that addiction and you get on the other side, you feel incredible. You're much more alert. Your mind is sharper. And I felt great on a keto diet. But when I cut the last of the vegetables out and I went to a carnivore diet, I felt absolutely amazing. And as an added byproduct from that, I had taken medication for GERD, which is a acid reflux type disease, for almost 20 years prior to that point. And when I started carnivore, the acid reflux completely went away. And I have not taken any medication in almost the last 3.5 years. And my allergies all went away. I mean, I used to be horribly allergic with an asthma reaction to dogs, and a little bit less so, but cats too. Today, I can play with the dog and I don't have pet it. I don't have any issues. Gone. My skin looks a lot better. I mean, I would ask you, go back to my earliest videos. You don't have to watch the whole video, but just look at the thumbnails and look at the first thumbnail image that I used, and compare that to the later two images that I use. I mean, you can see that the puffiness in my face, which is a symptom of diabetes, insulin resistance, in my case, more fatty liver disease. But you can see how much leaner my face got. My face cleared up. Acne went away. Because I cut seed oils out of my diet, I can stay outside in the sun for hours without burning. I mean, I will still eventually burn, but I mean, it's unbelievable how much more tolerant of the sun I am today. So, all of this hype around the sunscreens and skin cancer really, I think, is a result of the seed oil consumption, and the seed oils are known to weaken cell membranes. So the ultraviolet rays of the sun can damage the skin cells, which lead to the skin cancers. So that's my story. I've been following this diet for 3 years now, and I mean, I feel fantastic. So long as I couple it with a little bit of fasting and calorie restriction, sauna, early morning sun, hyperbaric oxygen treatments, I'm keeping it in check. And I mean, several, for the last 6 months leading up till recently, I had a 6-month stretch of my numbers actually going backwards and getting better. So other than cancer, I think most diseases can be fixed with diet. Cancer, a little bit tougher problem to solve, but I mean, there are thousands of case studies of people who have reversed cancer. And I shouldn't say they haven't cured themselves of cancer, but what they have done is they can manage it. And if I can manage the disease for the rest of my life, I'm good with that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.